Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Loud Life Show. My name is Alvin Folks. I am your host and your guide on this journey through this thing that we call life. And I'm excited to be here. I hope you've had a great week. And I've been excited about talking to you. I've been wanting to reconnect with all of you. Our first broadcast was wonderful, and it was a precursor of the greatness that we will be delving in together because this show is really about you. It's about us. It's about us trying to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And that's what I want the Loud Life Show to be. I want this to be a place for you to come and to feel comfortable with being your best self and attempting to be your best self. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, my topic for this week that I wanted to delve into with all of you is looking at the aspect of creating your narrative. Now, we all have a narrative, and let's be clear, we all have a narrative. We all have a story. We all have a past, and we all have things that have made us who we are. Those things that have made us who we are helps to create our narrative. We are able to look at ourselves from a 360-degree view to see all of us. Now, unfortunately, everybody does not see all of us all the time. Mostly, what people see is a one dimensional version of you. What do I mean by that? Okay, I'll tell you. I'll put it to you this way: most people see you as a snapshot. They don't necessarily see you as a documentary. They don't see you as a biography. They don't see you as a movie. They see you as a poster. They see you as a picture. So that version of you in their mind is all they have of you. Now, because that's all they have of you, they create a story that may or may not be your story. What they do is they see that snapshot of you and make all kinds of assumptions about you. They make assumptions about your life. They may make assumptions about your health. They make assumptions about your mental state. They make assumption about your assumptions. They make assumptions about how you feel, think, act. And in most cases, it's wrong. They have attempted to create your narrative. They are attempting to write a story about you that is not true. The bad thing about it is the story that they're writing about you is unauthorized. They are writing an unauthorized biography of you, and then they're out here telling people your story without your permission. Without your permission and without all the facts. Janet Jackson, whom I love, just did a documentary on her life, 4 hours, and let us in on some things in her life that we had no idea about. Now, there were people that were complaining, saying she didn't go deep enough. She didn't tell us enough. What? How can somebody not tell you enough about their life and share with you the things they want to share? Because what they want to share is what they want to share. I had, some people were looking at it and would say, she glossed over this part and she didn't do this, she didn't do that. Everybody's story ain't glamorous. And just because she is an entertainer and a public figure does not give us the right to be able to tell her story. So she said she wanted to tell her story in her words from her mouth while she was able to do so and not let somebody else tell her story. The problem is that some people, that just wasn't good enough for them. That wasn't good enough. No, Janet, you got to go deeper than that. You got to tell me more than this. And then some of the things she told people, people assumed or they even accused her of lying about it. Oh, no, that ain't true, Janet. That's not true. You didn't feel like that. You didn't do that. You didn't go through that. Really? So I learned from after watching her documentary that we all have a documentary. We all have a story. We all have a narrative. But there are people out here who are willing and trying to create your narrative because your narrative makes them feel better about their narrative. Are you following me? So, what they do is they look at your life, pick out the parts that make them feel comfortable about themselves, and then tell a story. And that story that they tell is nowhere near being the real story. In fact, most of the time, what they have done is made you a villain in your own narrative. What they have done is try to create a narrative that paints you in such a negative light that when other people listen to their narrative about your life, they become disenchanted. They get turned off. And they don't want to be around you. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to deal with you. But it's because you lost control of your narrative. What does your narrative say about you? What do you want people to know about you? Let me tell you something. And I'm going to be very transparent right now. Very transparent. For the last 3 years, I had struggled with and dealt with loss, grief, and depression. And in that time frame, I found out who was for me, who was against me, who wanted to help me, who wanted to keep me depressed because me being depressed helped them, who did not care about me at all. And I've been thinking all this time that they did care about me. And on the flip side, who cared more about me than I ever realized. I was so busy reaching my hand out to the people who don't care that I was neglecting to look behind me and beside me and around me to see all of the people who did care. Part of my depression was that I lost control of my narrative. And I allowed people to create a story about me that wasn't true. I was battling for my life. And while I was battling for my life, I had people say to me and about me that I was doing all of this for attention. That I was doing all of this because I needed someone to pity me. So I would post things and I'm actually reaching out for help. I'm actually trying to get someone to listen to me because I'm crying out for help. I am literally battling for my sanity and for my life. And I had people tell me to my face and say behind my back that I was doing all of that for attention. I was called all kinds of names. I'm telling you, I was told that I was selfish. I was told that I was manipulative. I was told that I made everything about me. I was told that I wanted to keep the focus on me. All of these things were not true, and they hurt me deeply. They hurt me deeply because of where it came from, the source of this information, where it came from. People that I love, people that I thought loved me, people who I thought were close to me, were creating a narrative about my life and making me the villain in my own narrative. I became the villain. I was not trying to play the victim. I was just trying to be victorious. Look at all of that. While I was trying to find victory, I was made to feel that I was playing the victim. And then those same people made me out to be the villain. Now, when you are in a very vulnerable, depressed state, you don't have no fight in you. So I let these people say these things to me, and actually what it did is it made me fold, and it made me go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into darkness. I forgot who I was. I no longer knew who I was, and I didn't have the strength to tell my own story. But I was allowing other people to tell my story for me. I was allowing people who didn't know me to tell my story to people who did know me, or who I assumed knew me. And all of a sudden, I became that person because I didn't have the wherewithal to speak up for myself. I didn't have the strength to speak up for myself. Look, let me tell y'all something. When people call you names, when people mischaracterize you, when people put out misinformation and disinformation about you, and you're already in a place where you're just trying to live, you're just trying to figure it out, and these same people are victimizing you while they're also villainizing you in your own narrative. And that's where I was. Here I was, depressed beyond belief, fighting for my sanity, fighting for my life, fighting for my survival. And while I'm fighting, I have people who are pulling at me and pulling me down, throwing salt on me, spitting on me, kicking me, keeping me from having the victory because they were telling my story for me, and their story about me was not true. You have to take control of your own narrative. I knew what I was going through. I knew what my life had been to the point that I was at now, trying to figure out why I am the way I am. Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I react the way that I react to different things? I'm trying to figure all of this out. I got years of stuff to sort through in order to figure it out so that I can have control of my narrative. But while I'm trying to find all of this, I have people who were telling my story. And here's the kicker. They were editing my story without my permission. So my biography became an unauthorized biography. Why do I keep saying that? I keep saying that is because you don't have permission to talk about or tell my story or tell my narrative based upon your limited view of me. You only see the snapshot. You only see the glitz, the glamour that goes along with some of the things that I do. You may see me traveling. You may see me dressed a certain way. You may see me at a certain event. And now you create a narrative that says, this is who this person is. But you don't know the victories I've had. You don't know the pain I've overcome. You don't know the pain I carry with me daily. You don't know the thoughts that I have. You don't know the ambitions that I have, the aspirations that I have. You think you know me. But like T.I. said, you might see me in the streets, but partner, you don't know me. When you holler and you speak, remember, you don't know me. If you want to get to know me, you talk to me, not about me. You don't talk around me. You try to find out what is going on with him. That's all I wanted. But you know how hurtful it is to find out that somebody thinks that you are using your pain for promotion? Ha! But what I did find out is that God used my pain for promotion, which is why I'm here talking to you on the Loud Life Show, my show. This is promotion from my pain. But some people think you're using your pain to promote yourself because they have attributed things to you that you don't deserve, that you didn't ask for, that don't represent you at all. But they have other people's ear. And so because they have other people's ear, they're telling your story. Don't let anybody tell your story. Don't let anybody control your narrative. Don't let anybody make you the victim in your own narrative. Don't let anybody make you the villain in your own narrative. You let them continue to talk, but make sure your voice is the loudest voice in the room when it comes to speaking about you. Did y'all hear what I just said? When it comes to speaking about you, you make sure your voice is the loudest voice in the room, because nobody gets to tell your story other than you. No one. You lived it. You live it. You're dealing with it daily. There are things going on in your life right now. There are things that you've dealt with in your past. There are things you're dealing with in your present that you have never shared with anyone. But you still have people out here thinking they know everything about you. But what do you want your narrative to say about you? You take control of that narrative. How do you take control of that? And I know that just what you keep saying. Well, Alvin, I hear you. You don't want nobody else to tell your narrative, tell your story. So how do you take control of your story? Here's how you take control of your story. Number one, you live your truth. You live your truth. See, because the truth is always going to win out over any lie that anybody tells. So you live your truth. Be who you are. Do what it is that you do. People are going to always talk about you no matter what you do. They're always going to have something to say about you. You're always going to have somebody who's going to have something negative to say about you. But you can't worry about that. What do you say about you? What do you have to say about you? How do you feel about you? And walk in that. That gives you confidence. Hold your head up high. Straighten out your back and walk like you have purpose. That's the first way you control your narrative. The second way you control your narrative is to not be ashamed of where you came from. Don't be ashamed of your past. Don't be ashamed of the things that happened to you that got you here. We all have a past. We all have things we've had to endure. We all have things that we've gone through that have hurt us, that have molded us, that have transformed us, whether it's been good or bad. We all do it. But own it. It's yours. Own it. See, no one can hold something against you that you're willing to tell yourself. See, because when you keep things to yourself or you keep things down, that gives somebody else power to tell your story. And they don't have that right to do that. So, walk in it. Own it. Own where it came from. Own every aspect of who you are. Because that's who you are. Pretending that it didn't happen doesn't mean it will go away. Because it's not. This is who you are. Those things made you who you are. You are the sum total of your experiences. Now multiplied by how you think about yourself. You're the sum total of your experiences. Multiplied by what you think about yourself. So I can look at all those negative things and multiply that with all the positivity I feel and go, those things made me who I am. And I'm okay with me. And the third part about your narrative, after you accept it and walk in it, you own your past, is to make sure that you keep moving positively in the right direction. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Your story may be the story that somebody else needs to set them free from something. Don't be afraid to tell your story. I was ashamed in 2019 of being in a depressed state because I shouldn't be depressed. What do I have to be depressed about? I can't believe I'm depressed. But I was severely. And I didn't want to tell anybody that because I didn't want to shatter the facade that I had created. Look what I did. I had created a narrative that was false to keep people from knowing the real narrative. But once I stopped being ashamed of the true narrative, I could get rid of the false one. So I had to start being honest. I'm dealing with depression. I'm dealing with grief. I'm dealing with loss. I'm dealing with abandonment. And the more I told my story, the easier it became to tell my story. The more I told my story, the more people seemed to be helped by what I went through. And to see how I got the victory in my narrative. Because in my narrative, I am the victor, not the victim, not the villain. I'm the victor. And to the victor goes the spoils. What does that mean? The rewards that come with hanging in there, persevering, enduring, overcoming, maneuvering. You are now receiving the spoils that you richly deserve because through the grace of God, you are now at this point where you control the narrative. You can tell people your story without stuttering, stammering, changing facts. You can own up to the good in your narrative as well as the bad in your narrative and not fear judgment, because who are we to judge anybody for the things that we have done in our past that were mistakes? We learn from those mistakes. We're here to tell about those mistakes. No one can hold that against you. So you take control of your narrative. You take control of telling people your story. Don't you let anybody tell your story for you. You have a voice. God gave you your voice. He didn't give you your voice so that you can be silent while the liars can tell the lies as loud as possible while you mutter the truth. No. We done came too far from that. We done came too far in our lives to have somebody else tell our story. You control your narrative. And you also, in controlling your narrative, you also get to guide where your future goes. You got goals? Write them down. We talked last week about your bucket list. That's a part of your narrative. What do you want to do? What's important to you? What makes sense to you? What fulfills you? What makes you feel good about you? That's another thing that people try to do when they try to control your narrative. They try to tell you what should make you feel good. They try to tell you what should make you feel fulfilled. They try to tell you what should make you happy. And they don't have the right to do that. Don't you let anybody else control your narrative. Don't you let anybody else tell your story. Don't you let anybody else look at your snapshot and create a whole documentary that's unauthorized about you. Because see, this is what you know about unauthorized documentaries. They're based on hearsay. They're based on witness account. They're based on rumor and innuendo. None of that's true. But when I get to tell my story, I get to tell you everything I want you to know. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. And just know that the things I may not have shared with you are things that I don't need to share with you, because you don't need to know everything about me. You know just enough to know that I'm a survivor. You know just enough to know that I am victorious. You know just enough to know that I endured a lot and overcame a lot, and I'm here to tell it. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know all the dirty details. You don't need to know all that. You don't need to know all that. Because I control my narrative. If you ask me a question and I don't want to answer it, I don't feel comfortable answering that. If you want to know about a piece of my life that I don't want to share, then no, we're not going to talk about that. Next. And then if you decide you want to go out here and make it up after I've told you that we're not going to talk about it, see, that's where the truth comes in. Because here I am telling you, here's my truth. I don't want to talk about that. You don't need to know. So now when you go and tell that story to somebody else, they're like, well, I thought he didn't talk about that. I thought she didn't talk about that. Yeah, but I'm just saying, from what I heard, from what you heard. Oh, see, what you heard doesn't make it true. What you think doesn't make it true. What you feel doesn't make it true, especially if it's about me. This is my story. You don't get to control my narrative. You don't get to make me a villain in my own story. You don't get to make me the victim in my own story. I am the victor. And I am victorious. I needed to repeat that because I need you to get that. And I get to tell my story. I have the voice to tell my story. I have the voice to be able to express to you what my life is like, what's my life been like, and what I want my life to be. You don't get to do that. I get to do that. I hope all that made sense. Don't you let anybody control your narrative. Don't you let anybody tell an unauthorized version of your story. This is your story. You tell it. Own your past. Walk with your head held high. And don't be afraid to share what's going on, what went on. Because you never know whose life you'll change, whose life you will save by being open about your narrative. You never will know that if you still live in shame about the things that made you, you. I hope that helps somebody. I hope this helps somebody. I hope you will tune in next week for the next exciting episode of the Loud Life Show with Alvin Folks. I told you I would close the same way every week. I love you, and there ain't a thing you can do about it but love me back. That's all you can do. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for being stars in my purple universe. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'm excited about this journey that we're on. I'm excited about what we're about to do. And I'm excited for the change that is coming for me and for you. Y'all take care. God bless. I'm gone.